The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the faint, metallic scent of medical equipment that surrounded me. I lay on the crisp white sheets of the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles as if they held the answers to my unraveling world. The beeping of the heart monitor was a rhythmic reminder of my fragility, each beep echoing the loneliness that enveloped me. I had pushed myself too far, working tirelessly until my body finally broke down, and now I found myself here, vulnerable and alone. My mind drifted to my family, the very people I thought would rush to my side in this moment of need. Yet, as I lay there, I realized they were absent, not a single call or visit. Just the distant chatter of nurses and the occasional click of a doctor's shoes echoing down the corridor. I could almost hear their voices in my head, filled with excuses and justifications. "You'll be fine, Zoe. You always are." It was a mantra I had repeated to myself since childhood, but now it felt hollow. The shadows in the room seemed to grow darker as my thoughts spiraled deeper into despair. I recalled moments from my past family gatherings where laughter masked the underlying tension, the way my mother's smile never quite reached her eyes. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, mixing with the confusion of betrayal. How had I reached this point, surrounded by medical staff yet feeling utterly abandoned? In that moment, I wanted to scream, to demand answers from the universe. My heart raced with a mix of anger and sadness, a storm brewing inside. I thought of my mother, the woman who had always been my rock yet had somehow turned into a stranger when I needed her the most. The weight of her absence felt like a physical blow, tightening my chest and making it hard to breathe. I wanted to confront her, to ask why she had chosen her image over her daughter, but I knew that confrontation was still a distant thought. For now, I had to focus on healing, even as the ache of loneliness settled deeper within me, a reminder of the family I had lost. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of flowers from the few vases scattered throughout the hospital room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glare on the pale walls, accentuating every crevice and shadow. I shifted on the stiff hospital bed, the scratchy sheets irritating against my skin, mirroring the agitation bubbling within me. My family had failed to show up, and every tick of the clock felt like a reminder of their absence. Memories of childhood crept back to me, vivid snapshots of family gatherings where laughter echoed through our home, a stark contrast to the silence enveloping me now. I closed my eyes, envisioning faded family photos where I was once a part of the joyful moments, birthdays, holidays, and carefree summer days. But now I lay here alone, grappling with the realization that I was not only physically separated from them, but emotionally abandoned as well. I recalled the conversations where my mother's words dripped with disappointment, her expectations weighing heavily on my shoulders. "Why can't you be more like your siblings?" she would say, her voice sharp enough to cut through the facade I wore. The resentment simmered beneath my skin, a constant reminder of the pressure I felt to meet unattainable standards. I clenched my fists, feeling the rough fabric of the sheets beneath my fingers, my body tense with frustration. When the nurse entered, her cheerful demeanor clashed with my dark thoughts. "How are we feeling today?" she asked, her voice bright yet oblivious to my turmoil. I forced a smile, the corners of my mouth twitching with effort. "Just tired," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to scream, to demand why my family wasn't here, why they hadn't reached out, but instead I swallowed the words, feeling them choke in my throat. The nurse moved on, chatting about mundane things that felt irrelevant to my aching heart. As she adjusted my IV drip, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window across the room. The woman staring back at me looked worn and defeated, a stark contrast to my vibrant past. I realized then that I needed answers, clarity about my mother's choices, and the painful truth behind our fractured relationship. I was determined to confront her once I was discharged, to wrestle with our history and unearth the reasons behind her neglect. The thought of facing her brought a mix of dread and resolve. I craved understanding, but I braced myself for the resistance I was sure to encounter. My heart raced as I contemplated the confrontation ahead, the weight of unspoken words pressing heavily on my chest. I would not leave this hospital without addressing the betrayal that had haunted me for far too long. The hospital room felt sterile, the white walls contrasting sharply with the vivid emotions swirling inside me. The faint beeping of the machines reminded me of my solitude, each sound echoing my feelings of abandonment. I lay there, the sheets rough against my skin, a constant reminder of how vulnerable I had become. My mother hadn't even called. The silence was suffocating, filled only by my thoughts, which spiraled into a dark abyss of anger and disappointment. I thought back to the slideshow, the laughter that echoed in my ears, a stark reminder of the warmth I craved but never received. After being discharged, I could feel the tension building within me like a coiled spring, ready to snap. I had to confront my mother. We met in a small family meeting room, the air heavy with unspoken words. The low lighting cast shadows on her face, making it hard to read her emotions. I wanted to reach out, to shake her and demand answers, but I was paralyzed. Instead, I took a deep breath and spoke, my voice shaking slightly. "Why didn't you come to the hospital? Why didn't you care?" Her reaction was immediate but disappointing. She glanced away, avoiding my gaze, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "I was busy, Zoe. You know how life is." The dismissal felt like a slap in the face, igniting a fire of anger within me. How could she justify her absence so easily? I could feel my heart racing, the heat rising to my cheeks as I fought back tears. Was I really that insignificant? "Busy," I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. "I was in a hospital bed and you chose to stay away." The words hung in the air, heavy and charged. I watched her expression shift from defensiveness to guilt, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse in her eyes. But she quickly masked it, straightening her posture and putting up her walls. "You need to understand, Zoe, life doesn't stop for anyone. I have my own responsibilities," she replied, her tone icy. I felt a wave of disappointment wash over me, the realization hitting hard that my pain was merely an inconvenience to her. I had hoped for an apology, a sign of acknowledgement, but instead I was met with denial. The rift between us felt insurmountable, and I knew this was not just a momentary conflict. It was the culmination of years of neglect, and I was left standing in the aftermath of her indifference. The hospital room was a sterile cocoon, the pungent scent of antiseptic clinging to the air, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting in from the nurse's station. I lay back on the stiff hospital bed, the starched sheets crinkling beneath me, feeling both vulnerable and trapped. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors created a haunting soundtrack to my discontent, each beep echoing the loneliness that had settled in my heart. I was alone, left to grapple with a reality that felt increasingly surreal. My family's absence during my hospitalization weighed heavily on my mind. As I stared out of the window, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the room. Memories flashed through my mind like a slideshow, uninvited and vivid. I recalled family gatherings filled with laughter, where I had once been a cherished participant. Now, those memories felt tainted, overshadowed by the painful realization of my exclusion. I clenched my fists, the sharp edges of my nails biting into my palms, grounding me as I battled the swirling emotions within. Just then, Emily entered the room, her presence a welcome distraction. She had been my rock through this tumultuous period, her supportive nature a stark contrast to my family's indifference. "Hey, Zoe, how are you holding up?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I forced a smile, but it felt brittle, like glass on the verge of shattering. "I'm managing, I guess, just trying to make sense of everything." She sat beside me, her expression softening as she took my hand. "You deserve to feel at peace after everything. Have you thought about what you want to do next?" I hesitated, the weight of my family's neglect pressing down on me like a heavy fog. I yearned for closure, for a moment where I could confront the hurt that had been festering for so long. "I want to talk to my mom, to tell her how much this has hurt me," I admitted, my voice trembling with uncertainty. Emily nodded, her eyes shining with understanding. "That's a brave step, Zoe. Just remember, you can't control how she responds. Your feelings are valid and you deserve to be heard." Her words resonated deep within me, igniting a spark of determination. I had spent too long silencing my pain, and it was time to reclaim my narrative. As I sat there, the path ahead began to unfold in my mind, each step more definitive than the last. I grabbed my phone and opened a notes app, jotting down the thoughts swirling in my head. It was time to plan my confrontation, to gather my thoughts and emotions into something coherent. My heart raced with anticipation, but also with a newfound hope. I would face my mother, not as a victim, but as a daughter demanding recognition. The journey was fraught with uncertainty, yet I felt a flicker of strength igniting within me, a resolve to seek the peace I so desperately craved. The air was thick with unspoken tension as I stood in the living room, a stark contrast to the laughter that once filled this space during family gatherings. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air, yet the warmth felt distant, a reminder of the coldness that had settled between us. With every tick of the clock, my heart raced, fueled by an overwhelming mix of hope and dread. I glanced at the family photos lining the walls, each frame a testament to moments I had been excluded from, and I wondered if this would be just another failed attempt at connection. Gathered around the table, my family's chatter sounded like muffled echoes as I prepared to voice the pain I had carried for so long. My hands trembled slightly, palms sweaty against the cool wood of the table. I took a deep breath, my stomach twisting in knots as I searched for the right words. Would they even listen? Would they acknowledge the hurt that had festered like an untreated wound? My mother's laughter rang out, a sound that had once brought me comfort but now felt like a dagger, sharp and unyielding. "Zoe, are you going to join us?" my sister called, her tone light, but I could sense an undercurrent of concern. I forced a smile, nodding as I wrestled with the rising tide of emotions threatening to spill over. I needed to speak up, to reclaim my voice, but the fear of rejection loomed large. The moment felt pivotal, a crossroads where I could either choose silence or summon the courage to confront my mother about the pain of exclusion. "I need to talk to you all about something important," I began, my voice trembling slightly as I captured their attention. Silence fell over the room, and I could feel their gazes pinning me down. My heart raced, a war waging between my desire for connection and the fear of conflict. I've felt invisible for a long time, like I don't belong here, and it hurts. The room felt electric, a charged atmosphere filled with uncertainty. My mother's face shifted from surprise to something harder to read, and I swallowed, pressing on despite the rising anxiety. "I need you to understand how much this has affected me. I want to be part of our family again. I want to be seen." She opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. In that suspended moment, I saw a flicker of something, maybe regret or disbelief, pass across her features. But before she could speak, my brother interjected, his voice filled with defensiveness. "You're overreacting, Zoe. It's just how things are." Frustration bubbled within me as I felt the old patterns of dismissal threatening to resurface. "No, it's not just how things are. I'm tired of being overlooked. I want to mend these wounds, but it feels like you're not even trying." My voice rose, the emotion pouring out like a dam breaking, and I could see my family's discomfort as they shifted in their seats, some avoiding my gaze. The aftermath of my outburst hung in the air, a heavy silence that felt suffocating. I could feel the weight of their stares, the uncertainty of how to proceed next. In that moment, I realized that confronting them would not magically mend our fractured bonds. The path to healing was paved with difficult conversations and uncomfortable truths. A sense of clarity washed over me. I wasn't just seeking reconciliation. I was demanding acknowledgement, a place within the very fabric of my family. And perhaps in that recognition, I could find my own peace amidst the chaos of familial love and betrayal. The day of the confrontation hung heavy in the air, a palpable tension that wrapped around me like a thick fog. My heart thudded in my chest as I paced the dimly lit room, the walls feeling as if they were closing in, suffocating under the weight of unspoken words. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting elongated shadows that danced across the floor, mocking my anxiety. I could almost smell the faint trace of lavender from my diffuser, but it did nothing to calm my racing pulse. Today was the day I would finally confront my mother. I recalled the countless nights spent imagining this moment, rehearsing my words until they felt like second nature. Yet as I stood there, my resolve wavered and doubt seeped in like a slow leak. What if my mother dismissed my feelings again? What if her eyes filled with that familiar indifference? I took a deep breath, my fingers trembling slightly as I gripped the edge of the table, feeling the cool wood beneath my palms. I was not that little girl anymore, silenced by fear and doubt. I needed to be brave. As I heard the front door creak open, a wave of dread washed over me. The sound echoed through the house, amplifying my internal conflict. I had imagined this confrontation 100 times, but now that it was upon me, I felt an overwhelming urge to run. My mother's footsteps echoed in the hallway, and I could hear her humming softly, utterly unaware of the storm brewing within me. I stood frozen, my heart racing as memories flooded my mind, years of feeling invisible, unworthy of love. When she stepped into the room, her expression was one of cheerful surprise, but it felt like a mask hiding the truth. "Zoe, there you are. I was hoping to catch you before dinner. How are you feeling?" Her voice was light, but the weight of her casual demeanor felt like a slap in the face. I forced a smile, my insides churning as I prepared to shatter the fragile facade that had long defined our relationship. "I need to talk to you, Mom," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper, yet it echoed in the charged atmosphere like a thunderclap. Her brows furrowed slightly, and I could see the momentary flicker of worry cross her face. This was it. I was ready to confront her about my feelings of neglect and betrayal, to demand recognition and understanding. My heart raced with fear, but beneath that fear was a steely resolve. I would not back down. This was my moment, and I would seize it, no matter the outcome. Sitting at my desk, I opened my journal, its pages filled with the messy scrawl of my thoughts. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a desk lamp, casting a warm circle of light that felt like my only refuge in the chaotic storm of emotions swirling within me. I inhaled deeply, the scent of lavender from my diffuser wafting around me, but it did little to calm the anxiety coiling tightly in my stomach. I needed to take control of my narrative, to transform the pain of my family's neglect into something actionable. With each word I wrote, a mix of determination and fear coursed through me. I jotted down my feelings, the injustices I had endured, and the plans to confront my mother. I want to be seen, I wrote, underlining it multiple times. The act of writing felt empowering, but the underlying fear of backlash haunted me. What if she dismissed my feelings again? What if this confrontation escalated into something I couldn't handle? A memory flashed in my mind, a similar conversation from years ago, her dismissive tone echoing back as she told me I was being dramatic. I shook my head, pushing the thought away. I wouldn't let that stop me this time. Just then, my phone buzzed beside me, startling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Emily, urging me to share my plans with her. I hesitated, but then typed out a brief summary of my intentions, explaining how I wanted to confront my mother about her absence during my hospitalization. As I sent the message, I felt a flicker of hope. Emily's support had always been a lifeline for me. I imagined the conversation taking shape in my mind, rehearsing the words I would say. "Mom, why did you choose to neglect me when I needed you most?" I practiced the tone firm yet calm, determined without being aggressive. Each time I said it aloud, I could feel the tension in my shoulders begin to ease, as if the act of preparation was already lifting some of the weight off my chest. The clock ticked steadily in the background, reminding me that time was slipping away and I needed to be ready. I felt a surge of focus wash over me, reinforcing my resolve. I was reclaiming my narrative, ready to shed light on the shadows that had long overshadowed my relationship with my mother. This was my moment to stand up, to assert my worth, and to demand the acknowledgement I had yearned for all these years. I would not back down, I would confront the truth, and I would do it on my terms. The air in the room crackled with tension as I stood facing my mother, the weight of years of unspoken words pressing down on my chest. The faded wallpaper, once vibrant, now felt like a dull reminder of the joy that had long since faded from our relationship. My palms were clammy against the cool fabric of my dress, and I could hear the distant hum of the hospital outside, a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing within me. "It was now or never. You never cared, did you?" I blurted out, the words escaping me like a cork popped from a bottle. My voice trembled with raw emotion, each syllable a release of pent-up frustration. My mother's expression shifted from surprise to defensiveness, her lips pursing as if she were preparing to lecture me. I remembered the countless times I had sought her approval, each time met with indifference that echoed in the empty spaces of my heart. "You're being dramatic, Zoe. It's not like that," she snapped back, her tone sharp enough to cut through the air. The sting of her words felt like a slap, igniting the anger that had been simmering beneath my skin. I could feel my pulse quickening, the rush of adrenaline fueling my resolve. "Dramatic? You think I'm being dramatic? I've spent years trying to understand why I was never enough for you," I shouted, my voice rising. The memories flooded back, family gatherings where I felt invisible, my achievements overshadowed by my siblings. The taste of betrayal lingered bitterly on my tongue, fueling my need for catharsis. "You think I wanted this?" I wanted to be close, to feel valued. Instead, it's like I'm an afterthought in this family. My words hung in the air, a heavy accusation that seemed to shock her into silence. For a moment we stood there, both breathing heavily, the silence between us thick with the weight of my confession. I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes, a crack in her facade that made my heart race with a mix of hope and fear. "I didn't know you felt this way," she finally murmured, her voice softer, almost vulnerable. But even as she spoke, I felt the familiar walls beginning to close back in. Would she truly understand, or would this be another moment of dismissal? My heart pounded, the fear of losing her love battling against my need to be heard. I took a deep breath, ready to push through the fear. I won't be silenced anymore. This ends with me. I deserve to be seen and valued for who I am. As those words left my lips, I felt a rush of clarity, a cathartic release that reverberated through my entire being. I had finally voiced what had been trapped inside for too long. Whether my mother chose to accept it or not, I was reclaiming my narrative, ready to face the consequences of this confrontation, whatever they might be. The moment felt like a fragile truce, a flicker of hope igniting amidst the ashes of our fractured relationship. Yet I knew that this was just the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, and I braced myself for whatever fallout was to come. But at that moment, standing on the precipice of truth, I felt more alive than I had in years, ready to confront the reality of my family's love or lack thereof. The aftermath of our confrontation hung in the air like a heavy fog, obscuring any clear path forward. I sat in my room, the familiar walls now feeling like they were closing in around me. Sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, but it did little to lighten the weight in my chest. The echoes of our heated words replayed in my mind, each accusation a reminder of the rift that had only deepened. I could almost feel the sharpness of my mother's responses, the defensiveness that had shielded her from acknowledging the pain I had laid bare. I picked up my journal, the pages filled with my thoughts and fears. As I flipped through them, the ink felt like a testament to my struggle, a struggle not just for recognition, but for a place within my family. My fingers traced the words I had written about feeling invisible, and I sighed deeply, a mix of sadness and determination coursing through me. I wanted to believe that this confrontation could lead to healing, yet the uncertainty loomed large. Would my family truly understand the depth of my feelings, or would this be another moment lost to misunderstanding? Just then, my phone buzzed, pulling me from my reverie. It was Emma, a beacon of support in the storm. "Hey, how are you holding up?" she texted. I hesitated, contemplating how to articulate the chaos swirling within me. I wanted to tell her everything, the hurt, the hope, the fear of facing my family again. Instead, I typed back, "It's tough, we talked, but I'm not sure if anything changed. It feels like we're still in the same place. Change takes time, Zoe, you open the door. Now you have to wait for them to walk through it," Emma replied, her words a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. I could almost hear her voice, steady and reassuring. I leaned back against my pillows, letting her words sink in. Maybe she was right. Change was a process, not an event, and perhaps I needed to give my family the space to reflect on what had transpired. As I sat in the quiet of my room, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. I had confronted my mother, and while it hadn't gone as I had envisioned, it was a step towards something new. I thought about the conversations we could have, the possibility of rebuilding the bridges that had been burned. I closed my eyes, envisioning a future where my voice mattered, where I could share my feelings without fear of dismissal. I had begun to carve out a space for myself in the narrative of my family, and that was a victory in itself. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was ready to embrace it, to seek healing not just for myself, but for all of us. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of acceptance wash over me. This was my reality, and I was determined to navigate it, step by step, with hope leading the way. In the stillness of my room, I reflected on the journey that had unfolded. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft patterns on the walls, a gentle reminder of the warmth of connection I had longed for. I felt a mixture of relief and satisfaction as I contemplated the challenging yet transformative conversation